So good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour, also greetings from the traditional territory of Treaty 3, home of the Anishinaabe Nation. I am the Executive Director of the Untitled Fellowship Centre. There is so much that I would like to share with you, but first I would like to give thanks to God for keeping us safe and healthy to this point. We are thankful that we are able to stand with the people we serve during this storm. Currently, we only have 2 confirmed positive COVID-19 cases in Kenora, but they have recovered. There are 15 in the Northwest region. As we are a border city, there is a travel restriction going either way across the border that you have to self-isolate for 14 days. There is much fear that all the cottage traffic may bring risk into the region from Winnipeg, as they have higher case numbers than we do. We have also seen an increase in people coming into the Fellowship Centre who have not been allowed back into their communities due to the blockades and efforts of keeping the First Nation communities safe. Even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Fellowship Centre was facing very uncertain times. There is so much uncertainty in the community due to the scope and need of the homeless population that we serve and appropriate services to respond. It has been an ongoing concern. We have been helping to fill the need and supporting food security with the homeless and those facing poverty, many of who are banned and on suspended lists as well as often as our own. Often people are dropped off here by other resources and referred here as a last resort. The nature of our work is to reach out to those impacted by the residential schools, and the young people are suffering the intergenerational effects. We see that every day. Shortly after the was declared, we were asked to help identify individuals who may want to return home to communities to weather out the pandemic. The majority of people said they had no home to go to, nor family that they could turn to. It spoke to the displacement and disconnect as a result of the child welfare system, the 60 scoop residential schools, the justice system, and it continues to impact family. As Matthew indicated that I might have to step off the call, today we were notified of one of our youth in the community that we don't know the circumstances of what happened, but I would just like each of you to remember this young man, Tyrese, who passed away early this morning, who was just recently discharged from foster care. And we were just speaking to his brother, who came to tell us, one of the first people that he came to tell that his brother died this morning. We asked him, who can we call for you? And he said, nobody. What does that say about what our children are facing even now? Excuse me. Please keep his family in prayer. We were involved with the Vulnerable Persons Task Force in preparing the isolation center. It was for homeless individuals and for those in First Nation communities who required a place to self-isolate. However, there was much concern from the First Nation communities that they wouldn't feel safe with the street people. So alternate arrangements were made for them on reserve. The Community Isolation Center recently opened this week and have categorized the people from level 1 to 5. 4 and 5 are deemed high risk and will probably not self-isolate and may be hospitalized and in a secure environment such as 4 North, which is the psychiatric unit. Many of our patrons we see daily coming through the doors are those level 4s and 5s. This is a great concern. During the pandemic, many services and organizations shut their doors, and this put many patrons further at risk due to interruption of services and support. We became the everything for many people, and it was a given that we would continue to operate. Many organizations contacted us to monitor clients, but on the positive flip side, we were able to advocate for clients and put some of the patrons on the radar, and we actively are seeking supports. Again, many of these individuals we found were banned from service agencies, and the prospects are very bleak. In terms of supporting mental health for staff and patrons, we have debriefed as often as we can and holding staff meetings to keep staff informed of what's going on. We have offered traditional medicine such as cedar tea. We have not lit any fires, which usually encourage time of reflection, prayers, songs, and togetherness. Initially, we did light a fire with prayers as we faced the pandemic. However, it has been difficult not to offer this practice during times of loss. And now that we have this young patron who has passed on, the family has asked us to light a fire, and I don't know how we could say no. Our drop-in center continued to open our doors to the most vulnerable people in the community, bringing high-risk behaviors. Recently, there was public notice of the community emergency shelter losing its current manager and citing it required specialized services and supports to effectively respond to the need. So currently, we are managing those very individuals who are in need of the specialized services and supports, often with no help coming. Again, the majority of these individuals are Indigenous and living the effects of intergenerational trauma. This is a great concern for us to question our role, the National Church role in providing support, the recommitment to the confession, and dealing with all the intergenerational trauma that continues. One of the strengths that we are so proud of is our staff, who choose to stand even in the face of harm. They have responded to ever-changing policies and procedures and safety precautions, wearing and learning to work in masks and with greater observations of people's health and watching for the health symptoms not always caught in the screener. Initially, we did not have the proper protective equipment. The OPP provided us with N95 masks, which we wore day after day till we were able to access a further, although limited, supply of masks. We acquired safety glasses and hand sanitizer and stronger, more protective gloves. We have been rationing our supplies, which we continued to ration with our hand sanitizer, and it feels really awful to have to do that with our staff. We cost effectively erected barriers within the center and changed many serving practices and encouraged and modeled physical distancing. And we will need to order more PPE shortly. The Fellowship Centre has been deemed an essential service and a point of contact for health screening. We have been on high alert due to the fact that the majority of our patrons screen high, as most have some sort of chronic underlying health conditions, which puts them at greater risk. As a result, we were able to identify a number of individuals who were required to be in self-isolation. We had a few tense times waiting to hear back test results, as some of those individuals were in our midst. Thanks be to God, they were all negative. We had to suspend certain services due to the pandemic, such as showers. We realize that it is causing further hardship for the patrons, but many things are out of our hands. We have reached out to our partners in the community to provide essential supports, such as clothing and access to food. For many, the only clothing they have is what they are wearing, and it is often not changed for long periods of time. We currently are providing socks and underwear and some toiletries. The lack of personal supports and lack of sleep has caused many to react aggressively, and we do our best to adjust as a result. Much prayer to start the day. Some of the services we currently provide are the day shelter from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We continue with our housing programs, and we have 12 residents. We provide meals daily of breakfast and lunch, serving approximately 50 to 100, depending on the time of month. Our coffee corner service is always busy. We also offer the only public phone, only washroom and toiletries in the downtown area, and can help with faxing and printing. We have been ensuring hands have been sanitized, and we also had to ration toilet paper. I'm sure many of you may have had to do that too. and that was so horrible but necessary. Initially, we were very concerned about our food supply and had to scavenge for supplies and ration what we had. It was a very humbling experience. Concerned people came to aid and offered prepared meals and snacks. We so appreciate all of the donations and expressions of care and concern, maybe from many of you and from other congregations within the Presbyterian Church. We are far from being out of the woods. We have had many struggles to ensure safety, including our yard and ability to monitor. This is largely due to the emergency shelter not opening till 9 p.m. So there's a period of time where people do not have a place to shelter. We daily have to pick up used needles and dispose of them. It adds to the risk we already face. It is risk upon risk dealing with drug-induced behaviors. This past Saturday, a young man attended the center shortly before 7 a.m., sharing that he was assaulted and in very bad shape with a bloody face and possible wounds to his legs. He refused medical help and did not want to talk to the police, which again goes to show that there are so many gaps in trust within the community and the Indigenous population. For him and many others, the Fellowship Centre is a place of safety and a place of sanctuary. And a place where you will receive help. The importance of the Fellowship Centre to the people it served is very essential, and in many ways, the church has accomplished its mission by providing a resource for the people. Now it is in jeopardy, even before the pandemic was declared, but it seems like the battle is suspended. As we try to ride out this pandemic war, what will be the outcome? God knows. We have attempted to share our story on our Facebook page to encourage compassion for the vulnerable and celebrate the giving in the community and the many acts of kindness and compassion. We have been fortunate to develop supportive relationships with the business community who was initially lobbying to deal harshly with the homeless who were causing damage and great concern for safety in the downtown area. God works in mysterious ways. The business community shared our stories, and as we acknowledge various local businesses, and we were viewed in a favorable light as we provided a place for people to day shelter. We are thankful for the monetary support which has helped us to continue serving. We hope to apply for government funding to help with our staff salaries and costs as we remain open during the pandemic. In reflection, the experience has deepened our faith, reminded us to care for self and others, to be the best stewards of God's blessing as possible, to be thankful, to show mercy, and to offer grace. Padamae. Miigwech.